everyone, thank you for joining the Alumni Association with this at-home tutorial on how to make falafel. My name is Isabel Strack. I am a graduate student here at Illinois State University, and I taught the 113 FCS class, Introduction to Food Cooking and Techniques, this past year. We are making falafel. Like I said, there are 3 components to this. The first one is a tzatziki sauce, the second one is making a chopped salad, and then the third component is finally making the falafel. I'm going to start with the tzatziki sauce, and you guys have a grocery list. Over here is all of our groceries that you will need for this, and below your grocery list you will have a utensil list, which I will be using throughout. For the tzatziki sauce, I'm going to need Greek yogurt, olive oil, dill weed, a cucumber, and garlic. So the first step, what we want to do is we're going to go ahead and take our cucumber. I've already washed it, but we want to go ahead and peel it and finely chop it. So you just want a peeler, you're going to put it at the top, put gentle pressure on, and run it all the way down. And then I'm going to use a paring knife because I have small hands and that is my preference. A lot of people prefer to use a French knife or a chef knife during this, and that's fine. I'm going to go ahead and cut off the top and the bottom of the cucumber, throw them away, and like I said, we want to finely chop this. So how I'm going to do that is I'm going to slice it first. So I'm going to keep my fingers curled under and do maybe like a 1/4 inch to an 1/8 of an inch there. And then as I go, my fingers slowly move back so I do not hit it. But if I did hit it, it would be hitting my knuckle and I would not be slicing my finger or causing any cuts. And then towards the end, my fingernails grip onto it, so I'm still not losing it and I can keep cutting. So now that we have it sliced, we're just gonna take a couple at a time. And then we're going to go ahead and slice it. And then once it has been sliced, we're just going to bring it all together, rotate it, and then chop it. Now, for those of you who prefer it to be more finely chopped, I would suggest using a grater. In my experience, people really enjoy the chunkiness that the cucumbers provide in the tzatziki sauce. And then once I have it finely chopped, I'm going to go ahead and gather the whole cucumber and throw it into my bowl. Now that that's in the bowl, we're going to go ahead and move on to the Greek yogurt or the plain yogurt, your choice. I'm using plain yogurt here. And we are going to take 1.5 cups of it. So what we want to do is take our measuring cup and we're going to dip it in and then use a knife or a spoon, your preference, to go ahead and level it off. So to do that, use the soft side of it and then you just push it over. So I'm using 1/2 cup because I'm just going to do 3 of these since it requires 1.5 cups. So that's 1. 2, and 3. Next, we're going to go ahead and add in the dill weed. Now, I'm using dry dill weed. It has the same flavor, so I also just suggest it. We're going to use 1 teaspoon, and if you really like dill, you can add a little bit extra in, and we're just going to sprinkle it into our mix here. We are going to take 1 clove of garlic, and we're going to take it off and go ahead and press it so that it's minced. And then we're going to put it into the mixture there. And then our last ingredient is 1 tablespoon of olive oil. So we're just gonna pour it out. And mix it in. And then these are our 5 ingredients for the tzatziki sauce. Now that that's all in the bowl, we're gonna go ahead and just mix it together. And if you smell it, it smells so light and fresh. It smells so summery from the dill weed and the cucumbers. So if you do grate your cucumbers, it's not gonna look as chunky. This isn't too chunky, but it does have a little bit of that crunch texture, which will give it a nice texture whenever we put it on top of the falafel at the end. So now that it's all mixed together, I'm gonna go ahead and cover it and put it in the fridge so that it's cooled whenever the falafel's done, so we can just get it out and put our sauce on top. Okay, so for the second part of this recipe, we're going to make a chopped salad to go on top of the falafel, just to add in some more vegetables to your summer day. So our 4 ingredients in the chopped salad are an onion, a tomato, half of a cucumber, and roughly a 1/4 cup of parsley. So first we're going to go ahead, we've already learned how to go ahead and peel and chop the cucumber. So we're going to take half of it and then chop it and then put it into our chopped salad bowl where we get the rest of it out. Next, we're going to go ahead and take our onion. We're going to go ahead and cut it in half. We're going to use a chef knife because it was bigger than my paring knife. Cut it in half. We're going to take off the top and the bottom. And now that I've done that, I will go ahead and peel off that outer layer. I have heard some people say that onions give them heartburn, and in that case, I suggest you take out just that tiny inner heart right there. And then from there, we're going to go ahead and chop it. So we're going to go vertically. Again, keeping your fingernails peeled under. And then we're going to turn it sideways. And then chop into kind of biggish chunks if you like onions. If you do not like onions, I would do smaller chunks so you cannot taste it as much. But I am a fan of onions, so we will leave it in bigger chunks. So we'll go ahead and do the rest of the onion so that we have 1 full onion chopped and put it into our chopped salad recipe. Okay, the next ingredient we're gonna cut is the tomato. So we're gonna use the fairly largest tomato because a lot of people like tomatoes in the summer. Now I have a preference to use a serrated blade knife with tomatoes because it does not crush the skin of the tomato. Instead, it'll go through smoothly without crushing it and making any of the juices peel out. So now we're gonna go ahead and just chop it into chunks. I do it the same way I do an onion. And that serrated blade is preventing it from being too juicy while I do this and from smushing it. Okay, now that we have the whole tomato cut up, I'm just gonna go ahead and add it into our chopped salad bowl. Now I have bigger chunks of tomatoes because I like chunkier vegetables. Now if you have kids, they'll probably want it to be more finely chopped, and that's perfectly fine. It's not gonna ruin the flavor, it'll just be a different texture. So the final ingredient is our parsley. So for this, what we are going to do is we're gonna go ahead and take some. We want roughly a 1/4 cup of the leaves. How much fits in? We just rip off the top leaves. We don't want any of the stems. And once we got our 1/4 cup of parsley, we're gonna go ahead and chop it. So to do that, we're going to use a a chef knife. And the safest way to do that is to have it down your hand, your forefinger and your thumb wrapped around the handle of the knife, Then you loosely rest your fingers there. And while you chop it, you're mainly gonna lean on this tip here and have your left hand flat against the blade. And we're going to rock it back and forth through this. So as you get more comfortable, you can go faster, and then you just keep moving it around. We want this to be very finely chopped because it doesn't have really good texture in the salad. It's mainly to give it some flavor. And I'm rotating my knife around that point right there. I'm not taking it and going up and down around. I am rotating it. And as we can see, that fourth cup of parsley was much bigger, but once I've started chopping it down, it is now no longer as fluffy. So you do not want a fourth cup of it chopped, you want a fourth cup fresh leaves. And then once it is finely chopped, we will just add it to the salad. We're going to then mix it together after we add this in here. So just take a utensil of some sort, mix it all together. It should be pretty chunky, have a little bit of bright green popping out from that parsley. And then we will put it right next to the tzatziki sauce in the fridge and keep this cool to go on top of our falafel at the end. Okay, so now that we have the tzatziki sauce and the chopped salad that goes on top of it, we're ready to make the main component of our meal, which is the falafel. Now this is a Mediterranean dish. It is completely vegetarian, and if you do not use eggs, it is vegan. The main component of it is the garbanzo beans, so you are getting protein in this. So this recipe only calls for 1 can, about 15 ounces of chickpeas. And so we're going to use our food processor. We're going to pour them in if they come out. Good. And then we want to have it completely close. Now it's going to get loud when I start this, so I'm going to want to pulse it or turn it on until it's a paste. It's a good idea to go ahead and have a spatula and go in and scrape off your sides to make sure that you aren't missing any large pieces, and do this a couple of times throughout your process. So as I'm mushing it down, it's sticking together, so that means that we are getting really close to it. I just want to make sure all my sides are wiped down. Do this again. So again, as I'm mushing it together, it is a paste. So that means that it's ready. So I'm gonna go ahead and take it off, and I'm going to use a large mixing bowl to put my chickpeas into. So the next step in making the falafel, once we have our chickpeas in our bowl, is to use the same food processor to go ahead and chop up our onion. We have 1 whole onion that we're going to throw in here. You can leave it in big pieces whenever you throw it in, or have it finely chopped because the food processor will chop it up more. A half cup of parsley. And 2 cloves of garlic. So once we have that in there, we're gonna go ahead and pulse it until it is nice and smoothish. And we're gonna do the same thing we did with the garbanzo beans. We're gonna take our spatula and take it around to make sure that we are getting all of the edges. Now, I'm gonna pulse once. And now looking at that, it looks like all of our big chunks are gone. So I'm going to go ahead and take this out of here and put it in the bowl with our garbanzo beans. Okay, so now that we have the parsley, onion, and garlic mixed with the chickpeas, we want to mix it together a little bit. This will be the base for our falafel. Now we want to give it some flavor, so what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and make a bowl of spices. We're going to go ahead and take ground cumin and we're going to add 2 teaspoons of it into our mixing bowl. Then we're going to take 1 teaspoon of ground coriander and add it in. Then 1 teaspoon of cayenne pepper and add it together. Then 1 teaspoon of salt. It can be kosher or just iodized. It doesn't really matter. We do want 1 teaspoon of baking powder because we will be cooking it and it'll help hold it together a little bit. And then we're going to just do a dash of ground black pepper. And then we're going to do freshly squeezed lemon juice. So to do that, we're going to first roll it around. I put mine in the microwave 5 seconds before I roll it around to get those juices going. Then I'm going to cut it in half. And I'm going to squeeze mine into a separate bowl, so that if there are any seeds, I don't have to worry about that. And I want 1 tablespoon, so I have roughly about 1 tablespoon in here, but I'm still going to go ahead and measure it out. One tablespoon. And then I want 1 egg, and once I put that in, I'm going to mix it all up. Now that I have all the spices together, I'm going to add it into my falafel mixture. And I want to scrape this bowl. I don't want to leave any spices behind because we want all that cumin, coriander, all the pepper. We want all that flavor into our falafel. And we're going to mix it. Now that is mixed, we're going to go add in 1 tablespoon of olive oil. If yours turns out to be drier, right now the temperature is very humid, so I'm not going to have an issue with that, I don't think. But if it does turn out to be really dry and isn't holding together, go ahead and drizzle in more olive oil. So I want to mix that together. I'm going to make sure I get everything together because the next thing I'm going to add in is a cup of breadcrumbs, and we will slowly add that in. So I have 1 cup of breadcrumbs right here. I'm using plain because we just added in all the flavor with all the spices, so we don't need the Italian breadcrumbs, but if that's what you have at your house, go ahead and use it because we did use parsley, so it would pair well with this. So I'm just gonna sprinkle it on. I'm only doing about half. And then I'm gonna mix it and see what my texture looks like before adding more. So it's still slightly runny, so I'm gonna go ahead and add more in. Okay, it's getting a bit firmer, but it could still use some more breadcrumbs. Okay, and now it's sticking together. It's more like a dough. This is also very similar to making a meatloaf. What we're looking for, we want it to stick together, but we don't want it to be too wet or too dry. It's sticking together, but I think it could use a little bit more, so I'm just gonna finish off my cup of breadcrumbs for it and mix it together. If yours does become super runny and it's not holding together for whatever reason, go ahead and add more breadcrumbs. You can use more than 1 cup because we want the texture of it. Okay, and now mine looks like it is fully together. So what I'm gonna do to test my texture, I'm going to take a ball of it. What we're going to do, this is gonna make 8 patties for us, and I'm just gonna roll it into a ball first, flatten it out. It's sticking together, it's not falling apart, so that's whenever I know that my mixture is good. So I'm just gonna mix that back in because that was kind of small for a patty. And then I am going to go ahead and make 8 little patties out of this that I will then set aside and we will cook in a minute. So again, we want to roll into a ball with our palms, kind of flatten it out. So it's like a little patty now, and it's holding together really nicely. It also has that nice green coming through it, gives it a little bit of color. And then I'm just gonna set it aside until we go ahead and fry it. Okay, so now that we have them all pattied out, we are going to get a pan. We're going to lightly coat it with cooking spray and put our patties onto the pan. We have our oven preheated to 375 degrees Fahrenheit right here. So now we're just gonna put our pan in for 25 to 30 minutes. I'm gonna take it out about halfway through and flip them once so they get an even coating of heat on both sides. And then we will see how they turn out at the very end. Okay, so while your falafel's in the oven, we're gonna take our time to go ahead and just heat up whatever bread we got. I suggest either using naan bread or pita bread. Whenever I was at the store, I did not see any naan bread, so I'm using a pita bread right here. So how we do that, we're going to go ahead and take a smaller pan that fits our bread, and we're gonna put it onto a lower heat, and we're just gonna heat it up for a minute or 2 on each side before we then flip it. No oil or anything in the pan. This is just to keep it warm so that when our falafel comes out, it has a warm bread, and then we have the cold tzatziki and the cold chopped salad that are on top. Okay, so now it's been in here for 25 minutes, so I'm gonna check on it. I flipped it halfway through, and we can see they have a nice brown texture on top and on bottom. So now it is time to go ahead and build our falafel Euro things. So I have a heated up bun right here. You can use as many of these as you want. You could do 1, you could do 2. And then we have our little chopped salad here. So we can just put on a little bit. or a lot of it. Get a lot of vegetables in here. And then in my opinion, the tzatziki is what brings this dish home. Putting on some tzatziki sauce. So we're gonna put it right over that falafel. You wanna get a good amount to get that dill flavoring through. And then you can go ahead, you can get into it with a fork, or you can Euro it up and go ahead and eat it. So I hope you guys enjoyed the falafel making video. Thank you guys for being alumni of Illinois State University and for providing for FCS, Family Consumer Sciences, and Turner Building here. We appreciate all the support we get from you, and I really hope you guys enjoy having a nice falafel dinner.